Through the Looking Glass. Today I have Carlos with me, who works in the financial services industry while completing his MBA at USC. He's one of my favorite classmates and dear friend, and I'm so excited to have him here today. Welcome, Carlos. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Great to be here. Thanks.
So introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Paz. I was born and raised in Honduras, which is a small country in Central America. After Honduras, I traveled a little bit and made my way to Los Angeles, where I've been living for the past 10 years. So, like Lavanya said, I currently work in the financial services industry for a mortgage company in their capital markets team. And at the same time, I'm going to USC to get my part-time MBA.
That's amazing, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
So I do want to really know about um, your experience of like growing up in Honduras, moving away at a young age. Take me back to that time in your life and um, share your experience, whatever you're comfortable talking to us about.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in a small town called Siguatepeque, which is a small town of roughly like 30,000 people in the middle of the mountains in
Mhm.
central Honduras.
Yeah. How do you
Um,
say the name of the town? I'm gonna
it's
butcher
called,
it.
yeah, Siguatepeque.
I'm not even gonna
S-
try.
You could just say Sigua
It
for
sounds
short.
cute. Siwak.
Yes, that's great. So pretty much all my family's from this town.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Growing up, I knew that I wanted to move away and, try and experience different things. Fortunately, I was able to go to an international school where I studied in English. I was able to get my high school diploma that was valid in the
Mm-hmm.
US. So from there, I knew that, um, if I did everything right, or quote unquote, I would be able to potentially move out of Honduras and try something different. So I was in high school where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. I think at the time, growing up in a traditional Honduran family, every
Mm-hmm.
family and parents want their kids to be like a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, So I was kind of following through that path. So at the time, I was actually applying for this medical school in Costa Rica
Mm-hmm.
that I felt that, was the right thing to do just because I wanted to make my parents proud. So I
Mm-hmm.
fully went for it. Um, and a couple of weeks before the school started, I completely backed out and I was like, I don't know if this is
Mm-hmm.
for me. I don't know if I want to be studying
Yeah.
for, like the next 15 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I quickly figured out what I could do instead. Like classes were about to start. This was a time when I started researching what I could do because I knew that I wanted to leave Honduras to explore different opportunities. So I came across this program based in Zurich,
Mm-hmm.
in Switzerland, that provided people, students my age, with the opportunity to move to Switzerland, to live with the host family, and to learn the
Mm-hmm.
language. So I quickly, signed up for it, convinced my family to pay for it, and to
Yeah.
send me to Switzerland. I had just turned 18 years old. I had no idea what to expect, but I just knew that I wanted, to try something different.
Yeah. That's amazing that your parents let you move away at that age. And I find it you know, very relatable that it's kind of similar in South Asian culture as well for like our generation to have been expected to like go into the medical field or become an engineer, like a dentist or a lawyer, and that was kind of the path that you were expected to go on. And if you, wanted to make your parents proud, like that is what you would essentially do, and that's pretty prevalent in a lot of cultures. There's a lot of pressure, and I love that you, almost went to medical school, but you kind of decided that, you know what, I need to explore more, figure out what I want. Take me back to that conversation of you telling your parents that, hey, I actually don't want to go to medical school, and what their reaction was and how you got them to agree to send you to Switzerland.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think that I come from a very tight family where I'm very close with my grandparents, very close with my cousins. So being the first grandson on both families, everyone was just,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help me pursue my dreams at the time. And I was really set on being a doctor, and everyone was like, "Well, we've never
Mm-hmm.
had a doctor in our family. That'd be great. Go for it, Carlos." Uh, so when the time came, when I had to like assess whether that was what I wanted to do before
Mm-hmm.
committing to doing that for so long, um, I just told my grandma at the time, I was like, I don't think that I'm ready for this. I don't think that I want to do this. I said, I want to explore other opportunities. Um, and this is where she said, okay, like you don't have to do anything that you don't really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, I didn't want to feel that I was falling behind by not, like directly starting
Mm-hmm.
school after graduating from high school, because all of my friends were going off to, very good universities in the US, in
Mm-hmm.
Canada, in Europe. So I was like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
want to figure out how I could keep on advancing and growing, and at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like buy myself a little bit more time to figure out what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. Yeah.
No, that's definitely fair. And I love that your grandma gave you great advice. She sounds like a wise woman. Um, so that's amazing. And I'm still kind of a little shocked that you were able to kind of convince your parents to let you go to Switzerland. I think that was a great move and probably changed your life in more than one way, and for you to be able to explore um, both what you wanted to get out of life, but also a different culture, which was sounds like was a goal for you from an early age to be able to leave Honduras and um, find your place in the world and explore your education and kind of take that next chapter. So let's get into talking about your time in Switzerland. Tell me about the day that you got there and how that experience was, and your time in Switzerland, how that kind of influenced you.
Yeah, so it was a shock. I mean, I was coming from Honduras, which is a small developing country in Central America.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone looks and speaks, everyone looks like me, speaks like me. Everyone,
Mm-hmm.
it's um, very homogeneous society. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was going to from Honduras to Switzerland, it was a shock. I was remember going through the airport, reading stuff and like we're trying to read
Mm-hmm.
science stuff in like four different languages, and I
Yeah.
was essentially going from a developing country to Switzerland, which is like a
Mm-hmm.
great functioning society that's clean, that
Yeah.
has has electricity, uh, it's all these things that
Yeah.
you don't really see a lot in Honduras. So
Mm-hmm.
moving to Switzerland was definitely a very um, it was a
There's a
shock,
lot of culture
just because
shock.
I'm
Yeah.
culture shock. Yeah, I was exposed to diverse cultures and experience and perspectives all at once. I think Switzerland being in the middle of Europe and being such a small country that's next to
Mm-hmm.
France, Germany, Italy, Austria, it's like a melting pot, especially as an international banking country, as well
Mm-hmm.
as it's a melting pot. So you kind of see a little bit of everything. So being there really pushed me to be outside of my comfort zone. I didn't really know a lot of other Hondurans that were in
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland at the time. But
Right.
fortunately, I was able to connect with other students in the same program that were coming from different countries, different nationalities, and you kind of have that, comfort zone, a safety net as a family that I had found in my
Mm-hmm.
friends to try to figure out and navigate, this new country that was receiving us with open arms in a way.
Right. Yeah, you had to, kind of find your tribe and find people that you resonated with who are going through the same thing. And I think that's the best part about going to college in general
Mhm.
is everyone's going through the same thing. But I do know, like from my own experience, even though I went to college like 30 miles from where my parents lived, there's lots of layers of like the like emotional struggles of like being in college because it is a huge change, and especially if you're going to a new country, there's additional layers of dealing with change. Did you feel lonely at that time, or did you feel like, oh my God, I love my newly found independence? Tell me about your emotions.
Yeah, definitely. I think I felt everything all at once. It
Uh-huh.
was very overwhelming at time, just because coming
Mm-hmm.
from a Latin American culture, I would assume it's, roughly similar to the Southeastern culture where it's very family
Mm-hmm.
oriented.
Yeah.
It's you definitely feel the support of your family and the society around you, and
Mm-hmm.
moving to Switzerland where they may have a different way of supporting their families, supporting their friends. I
Mm-hmm.
felt very lonely at times because I did not have that safety net of being able to quickly go and hug someone and feel, like
Mm-hmm.
reassured or feel, like
Yeah.
secure in a way. So it was definitely the time where I had to be okay being lonely and be
Mm-hmm.
okay being uncomfortable, and knowing that it was okay for me to be uncomfortable and that I would be fine. So, fortunately, I was living with the host family that provided me with that sense of security and comfort that I kind of needed,
Mm-hmm.
as to have like one of my basic needs met. But at the same time, I was independent. I was by myself trying to figure out, what I wanted to do. And, at the time I was going to German class, which,
Mm-hmm.
looking back, I did not really attend German class just because I was like, okay, I'm in Switzerland. I don't really need to go to class. Uh, you know, it's, uh, it's I remember at the time I had something called GEA, which is essentially
Okay.
like a pass that lets you board any public transportation in Switzerland. That could be a train, a bus,
Mm-hmm.
a boat. So I remember
Mm-hmm.
instead of actually going to class, I would just go to the central station in Zurich and be like, okay, well, like where does this train take me? And let's go figure it out. So
Were
that's
you by
kind of how I
yourself
got,
or were you with your friends?
it was a mix. So I think in the beginning it
Mm-hmm.
was with some friends. I've made one of the best friends that I have and one
Mm-hmm.
of the best relationships that I have to this time. People
Mm-hmm.
from all over the world, like my friend Connie from Chile.
Mm-hmm.
So she was also on the same boat, like just trying to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out. And I thought that was
Yeah.
great.
No, that's really cool that you went from um, you know, thinking about having that kind of like fear of commitment of is it, for me to sign up for being in school for 15 years, and then you're kind of shifting your priorities a little bit to take the time to explore and figure out, what you actually want to do. And sometimes, it takes being outside of a classroom to figure that out.
Hmm.
And who can blame you when, you're living in Switzerland and you have the ability to just board a train and go to a new place and explore and, you know, just see like a different culture and being in Europe, like it's just such a like melting pot of different ethnicities and different food and like you can't blame an 18-year old for skipping class and boarding a
Definitely.
train. But I love that you did that and you kind of have this like element of being fearless in a way to kind of just be like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. And I think that was probably a time when you were maybe coming out of your shell and kind of like finding your essence as a man and kind of finding that uh, rhythm in life. Because sometimes, as you mentioned, when you have a lot of family growing up, which is pretty common in both of our cultures, you kind of have a lot of things like supporting you. I'm actually also like the oldest kid on both sides of my family. Oldest girl on like one side and like oldest kid on the other side. So there's a lot of that like oh like attention that you get as an older child because you're kind of that like guinea pig um
Hmm.
in some ways. So you know I had to kind of also find my independence when I was getting older and once I had like moved away and started working and needed to kind of like find that um confidence to be independent. it's hard when come from a very family-oriented culture and you have a lot of support growing up, and it's kind of this like long process, and you don't really kind of realize that it's happening to you. But when you're looking back, you tend to kind of like see things a little bit differently in a way where you're like, okay, I actually grew during those years. Like the path that I took helped me, grow into the person that I want to be. So my next question for you is, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self who is moving to Switzerland, what is one piece of advice that you would give young Carlos?
That's a good question. I think I would tell young Carlos and current Carlos now just to remember to, embrace the experience. It's something that I try to constantly keep on reminding myself that uh, things take time. And I think growing
Mm-hmm.
up, I was a very patient person that I just wanted something to happen quickly, and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do this, and I wanted to be that, and I wanted things to you know, just happen all of a sudden. But just knowing that it's a process and you have to embrace the journey, embrace the experience. It's something that,
Mm-hmm.
kind of helps ground you, kind of helps, helps you reassess where you are in the path to getting where you want to be. And, like being
Mm-hmm.
able to appreciate the journey. I think one of the things that I have, always comes to mind is a quote or, um, yeah, it's a quote.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot where I saw it or who said it, but
Yeah.
something along the lines like, like there's nothing permanent but change, essentially
Mm-hmm.
meaning that everything is changing. So you just have to be able to be, able to change
Like
with
embrace the change.
embrace the change.
Yeah.
So I think going back to your question of, what I would tell Carlos is just embrace the experience, just try it, take chances, explore new opportunities and step outside your comfort zone. And I think that, I've been able to do a lot of that, but also
Mm-hmm.
just embrace the experience and actually enjoy just being in that moment at the time instead of just always wanting to be a certain person or
Mm-hmm.
to be in a certain spot when you don't really live if you're always wanting to be and do a certain thing when you just kind of forget to be grounded and be present and embrace
Mm-hmm.
where you are in your journey.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's amazing advice and one that I would certainly repeat, and completely agree because, it kind of reminds me of like one of the things that I felt when I was younger, was I would kind of like rush through experiences because I would want to, get to the next stage or like get to the next thing or like graduate college or, get the next job. It was always about the next thing. And I think over the
Mhm.
years, I've kind of been like, like, maybe I need to be more present, experience like what's actually happening now. And my mom actually says the same thing to me that, that I need to slow down and like enjoy things as they're happening and like enjoy being the age that you are, and not worry so much about like getting to the next year. And I think that's precious advice for a lot of people, especially in your 20s, because I think for us, for most people, your 20s is when you're changing the most and your life changes the most. And there's so many different things that can and will happen to you that's both in your control and, outside of your control, right? Um, and, just kind of being able to experience all of that and being present, it can be difficult, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people around you. Like you mentioned, when you were, you know, taking maybe like a slightly different path when you went to Switzerland versus your friends who went to university in the US or Canada. They were maybe kind of following more of a traditional path. And there can be that kind of like self-doubt that creeps in, even though you kind of followed your intuition to make certain decisions. It's hard to like not um, feel that self-doubt. So I do want to kind of get more into identity with you, and how you feel about yourself as a person now. Do you think that you've um, the person that you imagined yourself to be when you were younger, do you think you turned into that person? And if not, like who do you think you're turning into, and just your reflection on how you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a question that I always, ask myself or comes to my mind. I'd say yes and no. Yes, in a
Mm-hmm.
way that I am Carlos. I've been Carlos. This has been my identity for the past, now 29 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been fortunate to be surrounded with, people, friends, and family, with my partner now,
Mm-hmm.
that I knew that this is the person that I wanted to have, to like the person that I wanted to be surrounded by a tight group of friends. And I still think that, I'm still that young boy from Honduras that was willing
Mm-hmm.
to want to explore something new, something different. But at the same time, I would not have envisioned to currently be here. Even if you were to ask me 10 years ago, like, where do you see yourself
Mm-hmm.
10 years from now? I would not have been able to give you a concrete answer, or I would have said, I would want to be doing XYZ in Honduras or in Switzerland. So, being
Mm-hmm.
able to just trust yourself and, know that this is, at least for me, the way I see it, know that I have been Carlos for this time. I bring valuable, strengths and qualities forward that you know will essentially keep moving me forward. um so yeah, just like the constant self growth and being able to just reevaluate where you are now, and
Mm-hmm.
use the essence of the person that you are, to keep on manifesting and
Mm-hmm.
just chasing your dreams.
Yeah, I know that completely makes a lot of sense. I kind of, also think of myself in the same way, and I think of my life in chapters. And sometimes you think of those chapters like as they're happening, and sometimes it's a little bit more in hindsight. But I'm the same person. Um, my inner self is the same like throughout those years, but maybe my certain sides of my personality or like my value system or maybe the things that I'm working towards and accomplishments are different through those chapters, and maybe my energy is focused on something that has like changed over the years, and uh, I always kind of like reflect and think about those chapters, and sometimes it's also the people that are with you through those times, and you kind of like think of things in those like ups and downs, or maybe certain times kind of like stand out to you in a way that like I felt like I really changed or like grew a lot in like those couple of years. I'm really glad I got to like experience that. um Looking back and through like maybe like the past 10 years or so, and you've kind of had several chapters yourself leading up to your life now, is there particular time that really stands out to you as, I, struggled a lot during this time, or maybe, you just had like a really amazing year of like accomplishments? Like, is there something that stands out to you that you want to share?
Yeah, so I think that for me, one of like the defining moments, well, one of the defining moments in my life was
Yeah.
once I graduated college, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, well, I have this diploma that says that I'm good at, I majored in finance. So I had a diploma that said
Mm-hmm.
that I studied finance. I was set to, pursue my path in finance. I am now independent because I don't depend on my family paying for my tuition, or supporting
Mm-hmm.
me in various ways. So that to
Mm-hmm.
me was a time where I, had a new sense of independency because I was able to, um, I kind of in a way had to figure it out on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure that you also went through the same thing once you actually graduated and started your job and you moved to the West Coast. You had
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how you're gonna, grow and develop as a professional. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
having that new sense of independency allowed me to be, more true to myself and not really feel that I had to follow a certain
Mm-hmm.
a certain mold or be a certain thing or be a certain person just so I could keep on getting the support for my family, so like they could keep on potentially like financing my education or financing my lifestyle.
Mhm.
But I had gotten into a new sense of being independent, where I was, you know, a little bit more comfortable in being myself, being more authentic, being, you know, becoming the person that I, you know, knew that I was, and just being able to try new
Mhm.
things. So I think, you know, graduating from college and starting my first job was something that gave me that new sense of independence.
Mhm.
And you know, it's been hard. It's been a growing, learning and growing experience since then. But I think that was one of the moments.
No, I can completely resonate with that. I think, like you mentioned, I had a similar experience as well. And, um, you kind of turn into, you're kind of starting this like new chapter in your life where you're kind of solely responsible for the decisions that you're making. And it's a different kind of like phase in your life because, up until that point, maybe you're kind of getting some level of input from your parents. Or your family members, especially if they're financially supporting you, there's that kind of um, input or like backup in a way. But once you're kind of like more financially independent, you're more so responsible for your own decisions. And sometimes, when you make a
Mhm.
mistake, you're just like, okay, that was on me. I can't really like pass, like bad decisions on to anybody else. And you kind of have to take ownership of that and, redirect yourself. You kind of have to be your own person to reflect back on those values that you learned and stay true to that and kind of like keep yourself in check. So I do want to know more about your value system and where that comes from and how that's like evolved over the years and how that's something um, that's important to you and how you reflect on that through the years.
Yeah, I think, you know, growing up, at least my family and myself, we've placed a
Hmm.
high level of value to just being connected and being present, being there for your family. And that's something that I still hold to now. And as my family has expanded by, you know, the new friendships or like new people that I
Hmm.
keep on meeting along the ways, that's something that I want to stay very true to just, you know,
Hmm.
value family and value those relationships. I think growing up as well, I valued um, just trying to be the best in your field, or like trying to be like an overachiever, or always trying to, you know, show or showcase to everyone how good you were.
Hmm.
And at the time, that was, you know, maybe that was, you know, academically or socially. So now I
Hmm.
think over the past 10 years, I have been reevaluating my values, and I think, okay, well, I don't really have to prove to anyone that I
Hmm.
am the best in my career just because this you know, piece of paper says I am. But I think
Hmm.
over the past 10 years, I've been able to uh, reassess my values
Hmm.
and somehow figure out where I find the most meaning and purpose, and you know, and being confident in like seeking those new opportunities for personal growth that would allow me to, you know, contribute to myself and to society. So I think that, you know, this is why one of the reasons why I wanted to go back to business school, because I
Hmm.
knew that I wanted to, you know, be someone that would contribute to society in a way. I just didn't really know how. And even now, like
Hmm.
I'm sure that there's still a lot of opportunities that will, you know, come from this. But just having that value of, you know, being able to uh, find meaning and purpose in what you're doing, I think it's something that has evolved over time. Also, I think one of the things that I value now is just um, authenticity, being able to be myself, being able
Hmm.
to, you know, recognize the value that I bring, recognize the value that you may bring, or recognize the value that
Hmm.
anyone might bring to any given circumstance, and figure out how to approach a problem, how to solve that. And
Hmm.
also, I think one of the values that I really um, you know, value and I'm trying to constantly work on now is just
Hmm.
prioritizing my health and prioritizing my mindfulness. I think that it's very important to be self-reflective, to be able to listen to yourself, be able to understand your body, and you know, just do what feels right to you at that time. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, I think that I've been able to kind of stumble upon this by I first started doing yoga, which I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let me try yoga, but it's
Yeah.
just being able to be in a environment where it's just your thoughts, your body, and that's definitely a way to be very introspective in a way and figure out what it is that
Mm-hmm.
you're valuing and what it is that you might want to do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought in an element of like, slowing down and like take the time to self-reflect and, try different things like yoga that kind of helps you center yourself. And I'm kind of like, I think going through something similar as well because um, I do agree with you that there's this need to kind of slow down a little bit. And I feel like, at least for me, I've been going, a million miles a minute for so many years. And it's kind of, like wearing me down in some ways, but I'm also energized in other ways to, do new things like this podcast. But I do have to kind of listen to my body. Like you said, there's going to be times when I just have to choose resting or choose exercising or going on walks or going to yoga or whatever it is that kind of helps you like tune into yourself better. And I think that gets, um, I think it takes time to kind of be able to like listen to yourself in that way. And I remember like when I was, younger, like even a few years ago, there would be a lot of FOMO about like, oh, I have to go to this party or I have to go to this event or I have to see these friends. Like there was a lot of this element of like wanting to be part of your community and like wanting to do certain things because that's what everyone else was doing. And I think over time, you kind of get into it, like your set shifts a little bit where um, you're more so, you know what, I don't have to do everything. Like I don't have
Hmm.
to do what everyone else is doing. I can, choose what I actually enjoy. And maybe sometimes doing things in smaller doses does kind of um, help you enjoy it a little bit more. And I think that's where being really confident in yourself and your own values and your own priorities and kind of being in tune with that is so important. And I do want to know a little bit more about, um, I know you mentioned about like manifesting, and I feel like that's a really kind of like difficult topic for at least for me to kind of wrap myself around. Like I've, tried in like some ways in the past, but I'm not sure like I ever really, do it perfectly or like if there's like a right formula to manifest. I don't really know. I feel like I've just kind of set goals and, I'll kind of achieve them. Sometimes I set like timelines in mind where like I want to do a certain thing by like a certain time. And for the most part, like I end up kind of like making that happen. But I do want to know your thoughts on like how maybe you've manifested certain things and how you approach that. And I don't know if you have a formula or like how
Yeah.
your experiences with manifesting.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a right or wrong way to go about manifesting, but what you just
Mm-hmm.
said about, like having those goals down and like figuring out that timeline, I mean, that to me is at least how I manifest it, right? Because you're
Mm-hmm.
just saying, okay, this is what I would like to do, like this is what I would like to kind of see, and it's just about like, planting the seeds of
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do and be, and just putting the energy out there and maybe putting some work out there, and then
Mm-hmm.
you know as you've seen, sometimes like that does happen, or sometimes that may lead you to like a new
Mm-hmm.
opportunity or a new path. So, yeah, that's pretty much, like my take or my formula on
Uh-huh.
manifesting, just kind of like writing things down. I've had a journal
Mm-hmm.
for like the past 5 years, and it's been really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to kind of go back and see and kind of like read through like what I wrote 5 years ago. And I'm like, okay, well, in a way, I've kind of just like, I put my thought in a piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I forgot about it, but like
Mm-hmm.
I planted that seed and now
Yeah.
I'm in a spot where I have that thing that I wanted, or I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
position that I wanted to be in. So it's, I think that's my formula. Just, put it out there, plant those seeds, and,
Mm-hmm.
do a little bit of work and it's going to happen.
I love that. And I love that you,
Yeah.
we're going back and reading your past journal entries because I think that sometimes I feel so cringe about doing that when I read my old like journal entries. For the most part, I'm just like I sound so dramatic, like but it sounds like you were actually writing things down that you were dreaming about, and it's kind of nice to go back and see that and see, oh, like I already did that, or like it came true, or maybe it came true in like a different way. So it's kind of sweet to like know that you did that and you were able to kind of reflect. Was there anything in either your journaling or like just, reflecting back where you were like, I can't believe I wanted to do that, or you're just like so against something that you thought you wanted to do, and you're just like, I don't know why I even like wanted to do it in the first place. Like, did you have anything like that that shifted over the years?
Um, I think looking back, I can't like pinpoint like any specific
Mm-hmm.
experience like that, but I think looking back, um, just kind of going through, looking back through my journals, I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that kind of keep on popping up is, me wanting to do something, but
Mm-hmm.
having hesitation not to do it, or not being, you know, fully confident in myself to actually bring myself to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that is imposter syndrome. And I didn't really realize that up
Yeah.
until just recently, that, that
Mm-hmm.
imposter syndrome has potentially prevented me from pursuing other different opportunities where I may portray myself and consider myself, as a very confident and,
Mm-hmm.
forthcoming person, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like, you know, having those thoughts that maybe you're not, able to gonna be successful in this path, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, not fully acknowledging uh, how good you could be is something that has potentially prevented me from pursuing opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that completely makes sense. I think everyone goes through imposter syndrome in some ways, right? And I think that it's great that you're able to recognize it and, maybe kind of like make those changes to shift your path and be
Hmm.
like, you know what, like maybe, it is time for me to try something that I've always wanted to do, but, maybe I just didn't think that I could do it because you had all these like maybe external factors, or maybe it was even internal, that made you think that, you couldn't do it. And I think,
Hmm.
part of one of the things that I've personally feel like I gained a lot from being an MBA student is that confidence to do what you actually want and be able to like kind of get past that imposter syndrome. Because I think I personally kind of like really struggle with that before I around the time like we started our MBA program.
Hmm.
And I think like being able to see our classmates and just people in our community who are um, putting out like the best versions of themselves and pursuing things that is bettering themselves or like bettering their career paths or whatever it is that they want to do, and they're doing it with so much confidence, and there's this like element of like being fearless. It kind of inspires you a little bit to also get past your own imposter syndrome. I think as a person of color, that's something that is almost like ingrained in our minds
Hmm.
somehow, and there's all of this kind of like um, I don't know, maybe like indirect bias in our community that maybe kind of plants those seeds of feeling insecure about certain things, or setting limitations on yourself and thinking, oh, this is the best that I can get to for, uh, the background that I come from, or whatever it is that's going through your
Hmm.
head. But I think that like right now we live in a time where a lot of people are able to kind of get past those imaginary lines that we've drawn and kind of embracing that maybe there it really isn't that line there. Maybe I drew that in my mind, and kind of getting it past it internally, and that kind of is, I would say, the first step to actually kind of bringing that out externally and doing things that maybe you never thought that you would do because you had that limitation in your mind, and getting past imposter syndrome. So that kind of makes me want to ask you, what's maybe like the next chapter in your like growth and like identity, and where you kind of maybe uh, see yourself. And it doesn't have to be, like something very specific.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I also just want to go back to that point of I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was a really good example of how you said that maybe when you have imposter syndrome, like you draw
Mm-hmm.
these imaginary lines, or like you think that there's these lines out there when in reality they
Mm-hmm.
may or not be there. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you being a minority, you think that, you know, there may or may not be potential limitations, but it does
Mm-hmm.
stop a lot of people from actually pursuing their goals and
Mm-hmm.
being the person that they want to be. So I think now I think that I'm very confident and proud to be the person that I am. I just turned 29
Mm-hmm.
years old. I'm fully blessed. I'm surrounded
Yeah.
by, a strong community of friends and families. I think, my next chapters in life would be, finding that meaning and purpose through work. I think that
Mm-hmm.
me going to my MBA program has exposed me to like different industries and different career opportunities out there. So I think it's just being able to navigate what it is that I'm interested in, being able to like leverage my skill set for that. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that as of now I'm interested in is potentially pursuing, M&As, where I could
Mm-hmm.
leverage my, my background in finance. I could leverage my experience in building relationships with people and my experience analyzing data, running financial models to figure out how I could find potential synergies of companies and people and bring
Mm-hmm.
different people and diverse companies together to drive value from that. So I think, maybe that's something that I'm currently manifesting, something that's in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of like
Yeah.
journaled a little bit, but also, being able to um be authentic and find that meaning in what I'm doing, and at the same time, just be mindful and listen to myself as I'm doing it, because I think that I'll be stuck with with Carlos. I don't think stuck with Carlos because I actually like Carlos. I think he's it's a good person to be around with. But I think that I'll be Carlos for essentially the rest of my
Mm-hmm.
life, and I
Yeah.
think that just being able to listen to myself and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of grow as I go, and being able to embrace that experience and embrace the journey and just kind of like slow down and, know that there's potentially no right or wrong way into doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
just trying things out. I think that could hopefully help me in, move through my next chapters in life.
Yeah, I love that. And I can't wait to see what your next chapter is going to be. And I think that I've really enjoyed listening to, different elements, different versions of Carlos. And it kind of actually really ties into the question that I've been wanting to ask all my guests. What is one word that you would use to uh, describe your current chapter or like this year, maybe?
I think it would be evolving.
Oh, I love
And
that.
recognizing that I'm
Hmm.
evolving as a person, as a man, as a
Hmm.
partner, as I have a little golden doodle. So, I'm evolving as a golden doodle dad and evolving as a classmate, evolving and just being able to recognize everything
Hmm.
that has happened in my life and everything that all the little bits and pieces that
Hmm.
has influenced Carlos in a way,
Hmm.
and know that I will keep on evolving in that way. I think that's
Hmm.
you know the one word I would label this chapter in my
Yeah.
life where,
No,
Carlos
I love that
discovers
you picked an
that he's been evolving.
action. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I think that's very fitting, and I love the way that you described that. It's a great word. That's a new one that, no one's said so far. So I love it. It means a lot to me that you came on and you spoke about these things, and you were amazing. So thank you so, so much.
Awesome. No, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.